The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. Those are the words of the beloved and deeply revered American weird writer Howard Philip Lovecraft. Despite being relatively unknown whilst alive, HP Lovecraft's mythos, one which bleeds into philosophy, has become globally renowned, with the creations such as Cthulhu, or rather Cthulhu, and the Necronomicon becoming cultural icons. Throughout his poetry and short stories, Lovecraft created a mythos, an artificial pantheon of mythology, but unlike other artificial pantheons, such as those often created by fantasy authors, Lovecraft's pantheon is less defined. Their powers lie in the fear they incite through their obscurity. The oldest and strongest fear is that of the unknown, and the power of horror lies in the unknowingness of some realities. In his essay on Lovecraft, David Peake gives a useful comparison: disease. When a disease is diagnosed in a patient, the once formerly unknown becomes known, and as such becomes part of us. But then, the fear of this unknown part of ourselves takes hold. Horror settles in. How will this disease affect the self, and how will it change the way we exist in the world, our body, our dreams, and our future? As Peake writes, quote, "In this acceptance, this giving into forces that are by nature incomprehensible, horror seeks to offer direct knowledge of the real. It strips away comforting or cosmetic surface realities and lays bare indifferent inner workings. How we feel about those inner workings, or what they mean to us, is of little to no importance." And just like disease, Lovecraft's philosophy, known as Cosmicism, sits right there, in the horrifying nihilistic indifference. For Lovecraft, the cosmos and human-centric views of the universe are completely incompatible. But unlike nihilism, Cosmicism emphasises the complete uselessness and insignificance of humanity to the all-powerful universe over which humans have no control. Each of Lovecraft's creations and monsters horrify because they emphasise how humanity's existence is utterly meaningless in the vast uncaring universe. There is no evil to be feared, only indifference. Lovecraft believed that humanity's greatest terror is realising how small we are in the face of the cosmos, how the universe is vast, uncaring, and fundamentally unknowable. And honestly, I feel the same existential dread every time I lose a round of Tiki Solitaire Tri-Peaks, who just so happen to be today's sponsor. Because sure, I can't comprehend the great old ones or the madness lurking beneath the veil of time, but I can try to conquer a deck of cards. It's oddly comforting, the rhythm of flipping cards, building streaks, and watching the little animations as I claw my way towards victory and I battle my partner, because the two of us actually find a lot of competitiveness in this game. We pass the phone between one another to beat the other person's previous score. It's as though I'm imposing just a little bit of order in chaos, and the bright tropical setting is the perfect antidote to contemplating mankind's inevitable demise and complete insignificance. Plus, unlike Cthulhu, Tiki Solitaire Tri-Peaks doesn't demand my sanity, just my attention span. It's free to play and has over 4,000 levels, and you can collect free coins every day. So if you too feel the creeping cosmic dread closing in, maybe try finding some solace in Tiki Solitaire Tri-Peaks. Download Tiki Solitaire Tri-Peaks now for free and take part in the giveaway, because you could win one of 30 Amazon gift cards worth $50 each. And personally, I like to get something, like a big stack of Lovecraftian books if I won. So check out the giveaway in the description box down below and download the game now. Thank you, Tri-Peaks, for sponsoring today's video. Born in 1890, Lovecraft was an anxious child who suffered from loneliness and frequent illnesses, many of which are speculated to have been psychological. When he was just 3 years of age, his father had a nervous breakdown in a hotel room and was taken to a hospital where he remained for the next 5 years until his death in 1898, the cause of which is believed to be paresis, a form of neurosyphilis, though its symptoms weren't present in his wife or Lovecraft. Lovecraft was thus raised primarily by women, his mother, 2 aunts, and his grandfather, who naturally became his dominant male role model. According to the biography of Lovecraft by the leading authority of his works, S.T. Joshi, Lovecraft was a precocious child, able to recite poetry from the age of just 2 and reading the Arabian Nights by age 5. His love of the book inspired him to adopt a pseudonym, Abdul Azarad, who, for those who are familiar with his works, will know is the name of the author of his fictional grimoire, the Necronomicon. Then, like many children, his attention turned to the Greek myths, and he devoured children's retellings of Bullfinch's mythology, the Iliad and the Odyssey. His earliest surviving literary work is the poem of Ulysses, written in 1897 at just age 7 years old, and it paraphrases the story of the Odyssey in 88 lines of internally rhyming verse, though it is also believed that by this time he had discovered weird fiction, with his non-extant story, The Noble Eavesdropper, believing to have been written a year earlier, in 1896. His grandfather is believed to have been the source of his love of weird fiction, so when he died in 1904, the impact was likely emotionally devastating. What's more, the family began to fall apart from there. His grandfather's property and affairs were mismanaged, resulting in he and his mother falling into financial difficulties and leaving their lavish Victorian home. It is at this point in his life that Lovecraft is believed to have felt so hopeless that he turned to dark thoughts of leaving this world, taking long bicycle rides and looking wistfully at the watery depths of the Barrington River. He left his high school without a diploma, as he had a nervous breakdown just before graduation, resulting in him failing to attend Brown University and living with that shame for the rest of his life. From 1908 to 1913, Lovecraft was a hermit, doing little else besides pursuing astronomical interests and his poetry writing, and managing a very difficult relationship with his mother, who was still very traumatised from the death of her husband and had developed a rather tenuous relationship with her overly dependent son. In 1919, his mother's fate echoed that of his father's. She too had a nervous breakdown, was taken to the same hospital, and only left there 2 years later in a wooden box, dying from complications of an operation on her gallbladder. Her death naturally sent Lovecraft into another spiral, where he once again contemplated ending his life. However, he didn't. He ended up marrying and lived on the verge of poverty in Rhode Island, working primarily as a ghostwriter and a rewriter, with most of his short stories only appearing in the magazine called Weird Tales from 1923. Again, he lived primarily in poverty and complete obscurity until he died of cancer in 1937, aged just 46. Now, before we get into his works and philosophy, we have to talk about Cthulhu, which I, like many others, have pronounced Cthulhu most of my life, though technically that's incorrect. In a 1934 letter to amateur writer Duane W. Rimmel, Lovecraft explained how to pronounce the name to his creature. Quote, "The name of the hellish entity was invented by beings whose vocal organs were not like man's, hence it has no relation to the human speech equipment. The syllables were determined by a physiological equipment wholly unlike ours, hence could never be uttered perfectly by human throats. The actual sound, as nearly as any human organs could imitate it, or human letters recorded, may be taken as something like Cthulhu, with the first syllable pronounced gutturally and very thickly. The U is like that of full, and the first syllable is not unlike clull in sound, hence the H represents the guttural thickness. But because I am a mere mortal and I cannot make that name sound anything but Australian, quite frankly, I sound like I'm going Cthulhu, like Cthulhu. I'm sticking to the culturally accepted pronunciation, albeit inaccurate, Cthulhu. So first appearing in the 1928 story, The Call of Cthulhu, Cthulhu is a cosmic entity and leader of the Old Ones, described as, quote, a monster of vaguely anthropoid outline, but with an octopus-like head whose face was a mass of feelers, a scaly, rubbery-looking body, prodigious claws on hind and forefeet, and long, narrow wings behind. The sight of Cthulhu is said to be so incomprehensible to the human mind that, upon sight, a human would immediately descend into madness. Like we see in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Arthur Machen's The Great God Pan, scientific discovery was both fascinating and horrifying. Knowledge could be perceived as a self-annihilating endeavour. The unfathomable things humans would continue to uncover as they broke through the veil and handled that not meant for them, the more horrifying the confrontation will be between man and that he can never possibly comprehend. The most merciful thing in the world, Lovecraft wrote in The Call of Cthulhu, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little, but some day the piecing together of disassociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality, and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. All horror, on some level, revolves around that which is unknown. What is unknown about the people you spend time with? What is unknown in their minds and their hearts? What is unknown in the forest, in the abandoned hospital, or the abandoned house, the unknown source of the noise echoing through a dark alleyway, or the scratches that you find on your skin? Cosmic horror extends that fear of the unknown across the entire universe. Unlike the monsters of most horror stories, the creatures and elements of the Cthulhu mythos do not seek to destroy humans directly. They are completely indifferent to us. They are the essence of externality, part of the cosmic realm of which we and all of Earth are completely inconsequential. Of these entities there are the elder things, the great old ones, deep ones, and the outer gods, none of which can truly be described as, quote, there is no language for such abysms of shrieking and immemorable lunacy. But if they are not malevolent, why are they so terrifying? Because they symbolise Lovecraft's literary philosophy, Cosmicism, the horror of the unknowable and the incomprehensible. Lovecraft's eldritch horrors hold the answer that most of humanity is looking for, the answers that will often bring insanity, and the pursuit of that knowledge itself often results in death, or so it is for Lovecraft's characters. When humans don't have the answers to something, rather than sit in a void of ignorance, they will create answers to fill it. But those who wish to find the truth will often succumb to partial or complete destruction of the self as they know it. It's very rare that a philosophy challenges the convention that knowledge is power, but the extreme existential despair of Lovecraftian truth, one which not only challenges but annihilates human belief systems, makes one grateful ignorance is an option. Lovecraft's Cosmicism is almost a parody of philosophy itself, much as his eldritch horrors are a parody or inversion of theology, whilst also simultaneously magnifying elements of both. The Cthulhu mythos seems to embody an anti-mythology, where humans are not special but nothing more than prey of invisible mechanical forces of an inhumane cosmos. Unlike the mythologies that he believed were used to shield humans from reality or fill unanswerable voids, his mythology discouraged giving answers. Don't look too far outside this realm. In his article, John Gray puts Lovecraft's philosophy in a more poignant words than I could. Quote, the weird realism that runs through his writings undermines any belief system, religion or humanist, in which the human mind is the centre of the universe. There is a tendency nowadays to think of the world in which we live as an artifact of mind or language, a human construction. For Lovecraft, human beings are too feeble to shape a coherent view of the universe. Our minds are specks tossed about in the cosmic melee. Though we look for secure foundations, we live in perpetual freefall. There seems to be a lot of his internal struggles imprinted in Lovecraft's mythology. He was a staunch atheist, rejecting all religious doctrine, positing that humans had a special place in the universe. But he also rejected all types of meanings humans made for themselves. Nothing fit. There seems to be an unwavering sense of insignificance, not only to his own existence, but to all existence. But what does one do with the knowledge that nothing matters, no one cares, no one will care, and this expansive space that we're in which we're nothing but a fleck, could implode on us and wipe us out without a care in the world for the suffering and pain it would cause, the dreams it would end, and the meaning it would erase? Is there any point in creating meaning when meaning can be so easily eradicated? Well, that's the horror that we have to live with, and it's much darker and scarier than any film that we put on Halloween. Thank you ever so much for watching today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. And remember, while the cosmos may be uncaring, Tiki Solitaire Tripeaks definitely cares, especially when it's giving away 30 Amazon gift cards worth $50 each. Download now before the madness and the giveaway ends. And thank you as well to my Patreons, my wonderful, wonderful Patreons, and particularly my librarians. We have Gil the Gilded Dragon, Fox Goblin 666, Lady of the Labyrinth, Ellen, Eric Taylor, Yvonne and Yvonne, Jenny Edivane, Marina, Fritz Anderson, Wee Lauren, Nicholas Reed and Andrea Bazil. Thank you all ever so much. I genuinely appreciate so many of you. And as always, I hope you are happy and healthy. And remember, books save lives. So keep reading.